Hello, Steve White, Trek Boy 89 for Steve Arts 89, watching another episode of Star Trek Lower Decks. This one is called An Embarrassment of Dooplers. Now, there's 3 stories as usual. We have the main story. Is it 3 stories? We have the main story with the Dooplers, who are aliens who basically, if they get embarrassed, they duplicate. And so the crew's been on eggshells escorting them, trying not to upset them, but of course they do. They start duplicating, and eventually, like trebles at high speed, they take over the whole ship. I'm going to leave that story there. Then, while this is happening, there is a party at a Starfleet starbase. And of course, Boilermer and Mariner want to go. And because, well, basically they're not invited because they're too low, basically. The California class ships don't get an invite or something. But of course, Boilermer's duplicate is on the Titan and he got an invite, so they think, well, we can use that. So they use the fact that, I feel like Grace Randolph, so they use that they use the Dopplers basically to sneak out because, Mariner figures, well, they won't notice, during all this problems, they won't notice a transporter override. So they sneak out, they go there, they try to find out where the party is. Mariner's not welcome back there because she used to live there and she's got enemies, and she tries to get the location off a guy. He sends her on a mission to transport some data bubble baths, but he actually had some illegal Klingon disruptors hidden under them, so they have to basically run from the security, and they go on this mad race, and it's all on vehicles. And I'm like, why aren't they like hover vehicles? Why are they like road vehicles? It's like, doesn't really make any sense. And there's actually a funny moment where there's a guy in a Pike life support chair, and they're like racing around him, and he's just like, beep, beep. It's. I actually laughed. I hate to admit I actually laughed, but it was just random. And there are a few Family Guy like random moments in the show that is funny, but the actual like humor that they're building on the characters and the situations usually isn't funny. It's just the little random jokes that are. But they eventually crash in Avery, where there's another funny moment where there's these 2 birds in an Avery apartment and it gets knocked over, and one's like, sure, move into Avery, it'll be peaceful. And it's just little random jokes like that for some reason got me. But they crash, they come out of the water, and eventually she just calls up this guy and says, look, if you don't tell me where the party is, I'm going to turn myself in and you. So he's like, fine. So they go to the party. Boilerman gets in, but she doesn't. She gets upset because he's going to go in without her, and she's carrying on about being abandoned. He's like, you're making it all about you again. It's always about you. He leaves, but then when he goes in there, he's got no one to have fun with because everyone else is with their number ones and their other crew members. So eventually he goes and finds her at a bar, and they realise that the bar was actually once occupied by Kirk and Spock, who apparently were there once. So, because they got kicked out once in the 60s. So they kind of make the peace of it, and eventually the captain works out if you insult the Dopplers, they reform. So she tells the whole crew to insult them, they all reform, and they eventually resolve that problem, and they end up getting to the party, but they're not let in. So they end up sitting out and getting some food, and then Mariner comes out and invites them into the bar. The fact that they're on the station when they're not supposed to be there just doesn't get acknowledged. They just act like it doesn't matter. So again, she gets away with sneaking off the ship and just running through this whole station, running amok in the chase, but no consequences, nothing happens. So again, it's sort of that same sort of those Mariner character traits that really bug me, where it's all about her. She breaks the rules, she causes all the trouble, there's no consequences, she gets away with everything, and somehow she's the hero and we're all supposed to like her and she's supposed to be the best character or something. Doesn't work for me. The other story, the third story, did work for me the most out of the whole thing. There was a small story with Rutherford and Tindy. They were on the rec deck building a model of the Cerritos, and I loved that because I make models. If you could see the top of my bookshelf up there, it's like full of Star Trek models, and that tub is full of unmade models, and the other one is full of models that were made that couldn't fit on shelves because I don't have the display space anymore and have been basically taken apart. So I was just in love with the fact they were making a model, and he'd had a really advanced model that had like shields and phasers and everything, but he was having trouble finishing it, and he was really bothered by it. He felt like this was symbolic of him not having recovered from his accident, and he was being really bothered by it. Eventually, they run from the Dopplers. They get stuck in a shuttle bay. They end up using the warp core from the shuttle to blow a hatch to get out. And that's all resolved. But Tindy eventually tells him, we never finished the model. We just used it to use it as a buffer from people so people wouldn't interrupt us because they think we're busy working. So once we got to a certain point, we just stop and start over again. And the notes were there just to like stall you or something. And I'm like, why wouldn't she have told him that sooner when he was agonizing about feeling like he couldn't complete the model and he didn't know what he was doing and he was not recovered and didn't remember things, and she just let him go on. It didn't really make any sense. Kind of like how, there was another story point that didn't make sense I realized when I was going through this. God, what was it? I've forgotten. But there are a couple of story points that didn't make any sense in this episode. Oh, of course, the Dopplers, the resolution that if you make them angry, they reform. What, they'd never realised that before? This species has been in the Federation for years and they never knew that they just duplicated and no one ever resolved it. It's like she discovers this and then tells everyone, I'm like, wouldn't she have known that? Like, it didn't make any sense. So there's some story points that didn't make sense, and Mariner's character was sort of back to her same sort of position. I kind of felt like we've made some progress with the show, and now I feel like we've gone backwards. But the fact that we actually had my favourite character, Rutherford, building starships and that, and it kind of saved it for me. So I didn't hate it, but yeah, I kind of feel like the show, I don't know. It was okay. I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe, let me know what you think. Yeah, like I said before, can someone please explain to me how I'm supposed to like Mariner and just not notice or care that she keeps doing all these things and causing all this trouble and creating all these situations that have to get fixed, and there's never any consequences, never any consequences, and she just always gets away with it, and we're supposed to like her for some reason. I don't get why people like her. But I'm going to go. I'm not going to obsess on that. Bye.